very good morning to all of you. We are indeed honored and delighted to welcome you to the 4th Peradeniya Medical School Annual Research Conference 2025.
A very important day has once again dawned on our faculty as we commence the 4th edition of this conference with the hope of building a legacy that will continue for many, many years to come.
PeMSARC is a conference that is made possible by the collaborative efforts of all the facets of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya.
And thus, we hope that through these efforts, this flame of innovation and youth will be kept alive and unquenched for the generations that are yet to arrive at this very place that we all hold so dear.
So with that thought, let's proceed with the rest of today's programs. To honor this esteemed institution that has provided us with so much, let us all rise again for the university anthem.
That you remain standing, as in keeping with tradition, it is now time to light the traditional oil lamp. Hence, we now cordially invite the following dignitaries to light the traditional oil lamp. The Vice Chancellor, University of Peradeniya, Professor Terence Maguje. Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Professor Ranjit Kavlegama. Chief Guest, Emeritus Professor Vasanthi Thevanarasan. Keynote Speaker, Professor Anuja Premavardhana.
And representing the deans of all other faculties, the Dean of the Faculty of Dental Science, Professor Shyama Bannehaka. Conference Chairperson of PeMSARC 2025, Professor Samiti Navarathan. Conference Secretary of PeMSARC 2025, Sairi Pereira, Conference Chair, PeMSARC 2025, Dr. Tilaka Sendira, Chairperson of the Faculty Research Committee, Professor Indira Gavaramana, Director, Research and Development, Dr. Madhul Hettiarachchi, President, Cancer Society of Medicine, Professor Anita Kapal. Let us now witness the students of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya, invoke the divine blessings for this event with a spectacular push dance.
PeMSARC was initiated by the staff and students alike of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya, with the goal of inspiring students and academia to further develop their skills and interests in the world of research. It also aims to provide a platform for students to present their research projects and further inspire them to pursue research and contribute to the world of academia.
To relive the events of last week, when the pre-Congress workshop of PeMSARC 25 was held on the themes of Your Research, Your Journey. And for the first time in its history, the pre-Congress workshop of PeMSARC 25 hosted the first panel discussion with 3 eminent panelists on the theme of Navigating Your Research, a dive into the funds, the publishing, and the divide of research. Let us watch a short clip to relive the magic of last week's proceedings.
Faculty possesses a rich academic history and is the alma mater of countless fine clinicians and researchers. And with PeMSARC, it is in the hope of our distinguished staff and our fellow students that we shall continue to produce impactful research into the distant future of this faculty and our nation.
Before moving on to the remainder of this session, we would like to cordially invite the following dignitaries to the head table. Vice Chancellor, University of Peradeniya, Professor Terence Madhujit. Chief guest, Emeritus Professor Vasanthi Devanesa. Keynote speaker, Professor Anuja Premawardana. The Dean, Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya, Professor Sama Nayanakara. Conference Chairperson, PeMSARC 2025, Professor Samidi Navaratna. And finally, the Conference Secretary of PeMSARC 2025, Dr. Sayuri Pereira.
We now invite Professor Samidi Navaratna, the Conference Chairperson of PeMSARC 2025, to deliver the welcome address.
Chief Guest, Professor Emeritus Vasanthi Devanesa. Keynote Speaker, Professor PeMSARC, Vice Chancellor, Professor Terence Mabuji, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Dean of the Medical Faculty, Professor Samanna Nekkara, Dean of the Faculty of Dental Sciences, former Dean and Vice Chancellor, Professor Amavansa, former Dean, Professor Vasanthi Devanesa, President of KSM, President of PeMSARC, esteemed academic staff members, non-academic staff members, invitees, parents, and dear students. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizing committee of PeMSARC 25, it is my privilege to extend the warmest welcome to each of you to the 4th Peradeniya Medical School Annual Research Conference. This event stands as a testament to our collective dedication to scientific knowledge, research excellence, and academic collaboration. It is a distinct honor to welcome Professor Emeritus Vasanthi Devanesa, a pioneering force in microbiology, whose contributions and profoundly shaped education, research, and clinical practice in Sri Lanka. Madam, the faculty is not a strange place to you, but let me warmly welcome to PeMSARC 25. We are equally honored to welcome Professor Anuja Premawardana, a leading expert in hemoglobinopathies, thalassemia, and iron metabolism. As a senior professor in the Department of Medicine at the University of Peradeniya, his impactful research has earned wide recognition through numerous publications and citations. Please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Premawardana. A heartfelt welcome to Professor Terence Mabuji, Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, whose unwavering support has been instrumental in the success of PeMSARC-related activities this year. Sir, we deeply appreciate your presence here today despite your busy schedule. We extend our warmest welcome to Professor Samanna Nekkara, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, whose guidance has been invaluable in fostering academic excellence at PeMSARC. Likewise, it is a pleasure to welcome former Dean and Vice Chancellor Professor Amavansa and former Dean Professor Vasanthi Pinto, whose continuous support since the inaugural PeMSARC has been truly remarkable. Thank you, sir and madam. A special acknowledgement goes to PeMSA UK for their generous sponsorship, which made possible the successful pre-congress workshop held on the 15th of May. Their commitment to nurturing undergraduate research is deeply appreciated. Hence, I extend our gratitude and regards in absentia to Dr. Ashan Gunaratna, President PeMSA UK, for his unwavering support. We extend a warm welcome to Professor Arinda Dharmapala, President of KSM. We greatly appreciate KSM's steadfast commitment to research excellence, particularly through their annual undergraduate research prize, selected at PeMSARC and awarded at the KSM Foundation sessions, recognizing and encouraging outstanding contributions from our students. Welcome, sir. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to our research supervisors, reviewers, and judges whose expertise and dedication have been instrumental in making this Congress a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, PeMSARC 25 is not just an academic gathering. It is a dynamic platform that nurtures a thriving research culture. The first-hand experience students gain in collaborating with academic and non-academic staff in organizing this conference strengthens their foundation in research, teamwork, and professional excellence. These engagements equip our students with essential skills and inspire them to become future leaders in medical science. We, the academic staff, members of PeMSARC organizing committee are immensely proud of our students and pre-intern doctors who played a vital role in bringing this conference together. With great enthusiasm, we embark on an inspiring and impactful congress where ideas will take shape, collaborations will flourish, and knowledge will be celebrated. Welcome to all of you, and let the proceedings begin. Thank you.
A guiding pillar to aid our every step. It is now my great pleasure to invite Professor Saman Nayanakara, the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya, to address the gathering.
Good morning, everybody. Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Terence Manujit, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Ranjit Pallegam, our Chief Guest today, Professor Peradeniya, Keynote Speaker, Professor Anuja Premawardana, Dean Faculty of Dental Sciences, Professor Shyama Bannayaka, and Dean Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, Professor Lalani Attawa, Librarian Mr. Maheshwaran, Chairman of PeMSARC 2025, Professor Samidhi Navaratna, Secretary, and the Organizing Committee, and Jude Melaka, Student Chair, Heads of Departments, Professors, Academic Staff Members, our Senior Assistant Registrar and Deputy Bursar, non-academic staff members, students, parents, well-wishers, ladies and gentlemen. So it gives me great pleasure and pride to address you today at the 4th Research Conference of Peradeniya Medical School Annual Research Congress PeMSARC 2025. Over the years, this conference has grown into a landmark event in our faculty. It stands as a testament to our collective commitment to nurturing a culture of research, critical thinking, and academic excellence. Not only among our staff, but also among our bright undergraduate and postgraduate students. Research, as all of you know, is not only a function of academia, but it's a pillar that sustains the very spirit of discovery and progress. I am truly delighted to witness the growing enthusiasm, dedication, and curiosity with which our students and staff approach research. The integration of student research into our formal curriculum and innovative measures taken by the Faculty Research Committee headed by Professor Gavaramana and the PeMSARC organization led by Professor Navaratna, all these have played a pivotal role in fostering this spirit, cultivating inquisitive minds eager to question, explore, innovate, and contribute meaningfully to science and society. I would like to extend our warmest welcome and sincere thanks to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Terence Manujit, for being here with us today amongst his busy schedules. He will not be able to stay till the end of the proceedings. Thank you very much for attending, sir. His unwavering encouragement of research and innovation continues to be a cornerstone of strength for our academic community. Similarly, I am grateful to our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Pallegam, and the 2 deans who are here. Then we are deeply honored this year to have 2 distinguished panels this year. Professor Divanesam, Masanthi Divanesam, Professor Emeritus, microbiologist of Faculty of Medicine. Presence of Professor Divanesam and Professor Anuja Premawardana takes me down my memory lane to my studentship. I was like one of you here in this faculty. And both of them are also alumni of this faculty. When I joined as a student, Professor Divanesam was a member of the staff of microbiology department. She was one of our teachers. We had lectures and tutorials, practicals from her. And Professor Anuja Premawardana was a 3rd year student. We used to meet outside the university also frequently, as he is also from Kandy. So Professor Divanesam is a towering figure in the fields of infectious diseases and medical microbiology. Her immense contributions, particularly in leptospirosis, rickettsiosis, mycobacteria, milioidosis, and research into natural products, continue to shape both national and postgraduate scientific progress. The presence today is a tremendous inspiration to our young researchers. And we are equally privileged to have Senior Professor Anuja Premawardhan, as I mentioned earlier, who is also the Chair Professor of Medicine in Department of Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya. A highly respected clinician and an academic, Professor Premawardhan's work has left a profound impact on medical education and training in Sri Lanka in addition to his clinical skills. His involvement in both undergraduate and postgraduate education and his role as an examiner for MD Medicine and MRCP UK make him a guiding figure for the future. I remember him being island first among medical graduates. As we gather here to celebrate scholarly achievement, let us also reflect on the broader purpose of our work. Platforms like PeMSARC do more than recognizing excellence, they pave the way for the future. They empower students to adopt a research-driven mindset, develop resilience in scientific inquiry, and contribute solutions to the challenges of our time. I wish PeMSARC 2025 every success and extend my heartfelt congratulations to the organizers and presenters and the supporters. And I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to organizing committee, both staff and the students, led by Professor Sabili Navaratna, Professor Dr. Sayuri Pereira, the secretary, and Dr. Tilanka Senvirata, the treasurer. Let us continue to explore, innovate, and strive for excellence together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your continuous support in all of our endeavors. A figure who has long stood at the head of these esteemed grounds of learning, we would like to cordially invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Professor Terence Mabiji, to address the gathering.
The chief guest today, Emeritus Professor in Microbiology, Project Sankita Vyasa. Keynote speaker, Professor Anuja Premawardhan, Chair Professor of Medicine, University of Peradeniya. The Dean, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Ranjit Pallegama. The Dean, Faculty of Medicine, Professor Nankar. The former Dean, Professor Santi Pinto, former Vice Chancellor, Professor M.D. Lamavansa, other Deans. Conference Chair, Professor Samil Navaratna, Conference Secretary, Dr. Sayuri Pereira, Treasurer, Dr. Senviratna, Academic Heads of Departments, Academic colleagues from Faculty of Medicine, the Senior Assistant Registrar and Senior Assistant Bursar of Faculty of Medicine, non-academic staff members, the academics, Chief Medical Officer, dear students, presenters, other clinicians joining from hospitals, parents, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me congratulate all the presenters, junior researchers as well as senior researchers who are presenting nearly 57 presentations, abstracts in the form of, well, recognizing the importance of research. All the faculties at University of Peradeniya have embedded research component into their curricula. That is a great achievement. As previously we did not have, all faculties did not have, but as of now, all are doing. Why is research important, ladies and gentlemen? Well, way back in 1928 at St. Mary's Hospital, London, when Sir Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. From that until recently in 2021, the mRNA COVID vaccine was invented by our researchers. Medical technologies developed enormously over the last 100 years. As a result, our life expectancy has gone up in Sri Lanka. At the turn of this century, our life expectancy at the birth was almost 36 years. You wouldn't believe, which has now shot up to almost 80. That's a significant achievement due to purely because of medical sciences, medical technologies. Nowadays, many new techniques for us to see through the body, and that the use of AI has made the doctor's job quite easy. Diagnostic, early diagnosis has become quite easy. And ladies and gentlemen, the research project for undergraduates that you are performing in third year and fourth year is where you have high degree of freedom, high liberty to make your own decisions. You do your literature search. That itself is an art more than a science. We have sea of information and you need to pick up what is important, what is relevant for you. Then also choosing analytical techniques, deciding upon the number of subjects that you need to take into your research, and performing research by yourself, of course under the guidance of senior members of the faculty and outside, and taking your analytical skills, statistical analysis, interpretation, arriving at conclusion. This is a complete training as opposed to other courses where you are very closely guided and directed. When it comes to research, you are basically on your own, of course under the guidance. And also budgeting time, budgeting resources, finding the most resourceful methods of research. Because there may be hundreds of different methodologies, but what you can do here in Sri Lanka as a resource poor country may be limited. So that is a real skill which should be continued in your rest of the practice. Some of you might be academics, practitioners, clinicians. Still, as Professor Premawardana has mentioned in his message, only few of our physicians continue research. Am I right, Professor Premawardana? So that has to be changed. And don't ever think that in a resource poor country like Sri Lanka we cannot do much. We can. Molecular medicine is the way to go. Molecular techniques, most of them we can do in Sri Lanka. Although equipment is available, there's little difficulty in getting supplies like primers and chemicals, consumables, but still you can do wonders in Sri Lanka. Epidemiological studies way back in 1800s, cholera, people did not know cholera was waterborne. It was caused by Vibrio. But its testing associations, epidemiological research shed light on, okay, this is not due to water, but it is waterborne disease. Many epidemiological research you can carry out in the country. So that inquisitive mind is what propelled humankind to this level. So patients, their expectations are high now. Pain management. Now in good olden days, you know how the teeth were extracted, Professor Bannahak and Professor Pallega. But now people are very sensitive to pain, so pain management. And the gut microbiome is one of the key areas in research these days. The gut-brain axis. Our body has 38 trillion cells, not cells, bacteria. It's 1.3 times higher than the number of cells in the body, ladies and gentlemen. 38 trillion microorganisms in the body. Please correct me, Professor Thevanesan, if I am wrong. So the gut microbiome is considered the second brain. The connection, two-way communication between the brain and gut microbiome is well established now. And dysbiosis is directly linked to depression and other mental disorders, Dr. Sahiru Pereira. She might something for her to explore in the future. So these are some of the areas that you can focus on. And the neurodegenerative diseases and link of neurodegenerative diseases with microbiome is another area. And I'm sure you have heard of this French paradox. The French populations, they do consume a lot of saturated fats, yet their cardiovascular disease is low. So it was explored long ago, and they found that it is partly related to the consumption of red wine in moderate amounts. That's something that you need to explore in, I'm not sure. And the colorectal cancer and the consumption of red meat, again, there's no, it's again an association only. There are no hard evidences to prove certain areas that we can think of. As a Professor Anuja, now iron deficiency anemia in Sri Lanka, in some districts, it is at above 30%, 31%, 32%. And way back in 2014, as I remember, the Ministry of Health wanted to have rice fortification program, fortification of rice with folic acid and iron. But unfortunately, now only it is coming up. So how is it good to, iron is a toxic compound, and that is why it is pampered in protein as ferritin and hemosiderin. Well, this iron fortification, rice fortification is now on the go. And already the private sector has fortified wheat flour with folacin and iron, which is already available in the market. Certain myths, I can remember in 2017 we did a research project in line of this rice fortification. We visited many schools in Siembalanduwa, Bibila, Monaragala, Katharagama and Matale areas, where they had this midday meal program supported by World Food Program. And there are many myths among our kids and parents. The egg is given with the free meal, but they throw out the egg. Parents have advised the kids to throw out the eggs, myths that eggs are not good. And controversies about milk. All these controversies are only in Sri Lanka. The rest of the world is drinking milk. And so one of the best sources of calcium, unfortunately, we are missing. As you know, as Professor Navaratna once mentioned, and also the real facts and figures, 9 out of 10 Sri Lankans are deficient in vitamin D, D3. So these are many areas for you to explore, ladies and gentlemen. So as a layman to these subjects, this is how I see. So at University of Peradeniya, we are committed to research. During the most difficult period of last year, year before, and in 2022, we did not cut down funds for research. Instead, we increased. Right now, we are spending 120 million rupees for research at Peradeniya through University Research Council as well as University Research Grants. And that is to boost research. I happen to be the founder director of University Research Council, which was initiated in 2020. And we started a number of different programs to felicitate, identify good researchers, identify tier 4-star researchers and felicitate them. And initiating these research felicitation programs in all faculties. And providing article processing charge up to $1,500 up to 3 of researchers. And also initiating multidisciplinary research grants thanks to Professor Lamawan's going along with his vision. Through University Research Council, we started multidisciplinary research grants, which are doing very successfully. And in the first round, there were 12 grants were released, and they are nearing the end of the successful end of the research programs. And for the third consecutive year, this year also we are offering these multidisciplinary research grants. All is done by the central administration to support research, because we know the importance of research. So without much ado, let me congratulate all the junior authors, senior authors. Don't ever think that this is the end of your research career. then these should be published in high-end journals, make presentations. That is how we can keep others in the know. Otherwise your work will be collecting dust somewhere. And trying to put this into practice, and most importantly, this learning is a lifelong learning process now. In 50 years back, the knowledge to double in medicine, it took nearly 50 years. But in today's world, any field you name, the knowledge will be doubled in less than 5 years. Medicine is of no exception. So ladies and gentlemen, you need to keep abreast with the rest of the world. Keep up your good work. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful words. It is our pleasure to now invite Professor Samiti Navara, the conference chairperson, to introduce our chief guest for PeMSARC 2025.
Professor Vasanthi Tevanesa, Professor Emeritus, Consultant Microbiologist. Professor Vasanthi Tevanesa is a distinguished academic and consultant microbiologist whose contributions have profoundly shaped microbiology and infectious disease research in Sri Lanka. She earned her MBBS from the University of Ceylon in 1972, followed by her Doctor of Medicine in Microbiology from the University of Peradeniya in 1985. Her international qualifications include Member of Royal College of Physicians UK in 1981 and Fellow of Royal College of Pathologists UK, which she held from 1985 to 2010. In recognition of her contributions to scientific advancement, she was named a Fellow of the Sri Lankan Association of Science in 2008. During her 26-year tenure at the University of Peradeniya, Professor Tevanesa played a crucial role in medical microbiology education, training undergraduate students in medical, dental and laboratory sciences, as well as postgraduate students across various medical specialties. She was instrumental in developing and strengthening the postgraduate medical microbiology program through the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, ensuring the advancement of consultant microbiologists in Sri Lanka. Beyond academia, her expertise has significantly contributed to clinical microbiology. She spearheaded diagnostic microbiology services in hospitals across the country, advising hospitals without dedicated microbiology units. Recognizing the importance of infection control, she initiated infection control committees in major hospitals and founded the Sri Lanka Infection Control Nurses Association, where she served as patron. Professor Tevanesa was actively involved with the British Society for Antimicrobial Chemotherapy from 1996 to 2009, contributing to antimicrobial research and policy development. With the support of many collaborators, she helped establish the British Society for Antimicrobial Chemotherapy and Hospital Infection Control collaboration between 2000 and 2005, advancing infection control practices in Sri Lankan hospitals. Her leadership in professional societies has been transformative. In 2010, she founded the Sri Lankan Society for Microbiology, modeled after the American Society for Microbiology, to create spaces for interdisciplinary collaboration among professionals interested in microbes. Under her guidance, Sri Lankan Society for Microbiology has fostered scientific exchange through annual conferences and the publication of the Sri Lankan Journal of Infectious Diseases. Additionally, she has served as president of the Sri Lankan College of Microbiology, further solidifying her role in advancing microbiological research and practice in the country. Her research spans tropical infectious diseases, the antimicrobial activity of plant-based medicines, and diagnostic microbiology, with collaborations extending to global institutions such as the University of Western Australia. Through her unwavering dedication to education, research and clinical advancements, Professor Emeritus Vasanthi Peradeniya continues to shape the future of microbiology in Sri Lanka and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great admiration and respect that I now invite Professor Vasanthi Peradeniya to the podium to deliver her speech. Please join me in welcoming her with a warm round of applause.
As they go down, I'll thank Professor Navaratna for that introduction. I'm not sure where on earth she got all that information from. As far as I know, most of that is under the carpet kind of stuff. So I think there have been collaborators from my department, ex-department. Thank you anyway for that introduction. Vice Chancellor Sir, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Anuja, Professor Lamavansa and Professor Pinto, all the rest of you who are sitting here, Dean Medicine, and I think there are deans of 2 other faculties here, colleagues from the medical faculty, and I'm not sure whether there are colleagues from other faculties in the University of Peradeniya, if they're there. And last but not least, and this actually message is for the students, right? It's aimed primarily at the medical students whom I've always loved teaching and loved talking with and loved listening to over my years at the Faculty of Medicine. I'm very honored to be invited as a guest. Thank you very much. As you know, I usually refuse, but I couldn't refuse this invitation. I found it hard to say no, and so I accepted it. A very brief look at my interaction with the University of Peradeniya not only gives a clue to my age, but also an indication of the contribution that the University of Peradeniya has made to me over the past 58 years. I entered in 1967 and qualified in 1972. And so I would like to, at the beginning itself, express my thanks to the very many academics, not only of the Faculty of Medicine, but to the faculties elsewhere in the university, non-academic staff from the Faculty of Medicine and from other faculties of the university, and the students of both medical faculty and other faculties, for their many contributions to my journey as a doctor and as a microbiologist over these last 53 years since I qualified. It's a long time ago. Now, PeMSARC 25 is a celebration of the culmination of 4th year research projects, and this is your day, medical students, as you approach the end of your student days and the beginning of your medical career. For many of you, this is what you really want. You want to be a doctor. Hopefully, you want to be a doctor who cares for your patients, and also you want to be a doctor who contributes to the health of society, as the Vice Chancellor expressed so well as he spoke to us a few minutes ago. Right? And I think as you took part in your introduction to research, I'd just like to ask you a question. I wonder how many of you thought to yourselves, why am I doing this? Did you? Right? And maybe you wondered, what is the connection with being a doctor, right, and this stuff that we are doing now? Taking time out of studying medicine and surgery and genobs and pediatrics and other subjects which will contribute to your life as a doctor and perhaps where your ambitions lie. Right? Now, what is research? It is often explained as a way of looking for new information, obtaining fresh understanding of what we encounter, seeking for answers to gaps in our knowledge, and solving problems. Now, the Vice Chancellor elaborated on that, covering a lot of our fields, and so opening up our minds to the various ways in which research has helped the human population over the years. Now, as you have experienced during your research activity, you gathered current information, and that is what we call data. You analyzed and interpreted your findings in a very systematic way, I hope, to move forward towards answering your specific question, which you actually put in your introduction or at the start of your research project. Now, for research to become part of our life, we must be open to asking questions, right? The who, the why, the what, the when, and so on, right? Of whatever we encounter in our day-to-day lives. And so I would like to share 3 connections we have with cats. Right. Now you might wonder why I got this idea, but I have a colleague who had over the years, over a period of time, put up pictures of, I won't tell the gender of my colleague, so put up pictures of a cat hiding in the garden on Facebook. And we were all invited to find the cat. And several of us actually looked. I must say I was unsuccessful most of the time, but there were others who managed to locate the cat, and then we would be informed of the cat with a little circle around the cat. Right? And as I thought about this, I mean this was quite a while ago, but obviously it stayed in my head. And as I thought about this, I thought, what do we share with this cat, right? Or with other cats as well. I wonder how many of you are cat lovers. I'm not a cat lover, by the way, but I found this quite an interesting thought that came to my mind. Now, cats are known for a lot of characteristics, but 3 of them are, one is curiosity, one is exploration, and the other is that they never give up, right? And so I will take those 3 and explore what the connection with research is through this link with cats. So every time you see a cat, you can think about it. Right? Cats are inherently curious, right? They are driven by their instincts to explore, investigate, and discover new things in their environment. And as we see this, I would like us to ask ourselves a question: do we stifle curiosity from childhood? For those of you who perhaps find the word stifle a bit new, do we suppress, do we put down curiosity from childhood? Now this is actually quite common, I think, among parents who get exasperated by their children asking, question after question after question while you're busy cooking or doing something else that is important. And so, you shut the child up with some non-committal answer, or you tell the child to go and watch television, or, distract the child in some way. But we also get suppressed, I think, by teachers who get very tired of being asked questions, or perhaps cannot answer those questions and then get very angry with students who ask. And so this is a common experience in our lives, right? That curiosity is stifled, and it's quite late when you come to the university to rekindle curiosity, which, as the Vice Chancellor explained, is what we need in order to develop a research culture within ourselves, let alone within the faculty or within society. And as adults, I think, so we become a group of people who find it very, very hard to ask questions. I remember standing here giving lectures when we had backlog clearance, when we had 2 batches, so we had something like 400 students here, and I would normally give the lecture from down there, but it was impossible for them to hear. And you ask them to ask questions, and they all look at you with what I call the medical student look, but I've found it in other faculties as well. So they all look and stare at you, right? So I found my own ways of helping them to ask questions, or to at least interact by giving me a smile from time to time. And so I think we stifle curiosity, and we do need to redevelop that if we have stifled it in our lives. The other point is that as health caregivers and as patients, we want certainties, we want definite answers to questions. But uncertainty is the norm. We can never be sure of anything. If a patient asks you, will I get better? And you say yes, and the patient dies the next day, you are in big trouble, right? And so we find ways of going around uncertainties, pretending that we are certain. And I think this is something that comes through in science as well. And so I think we need to deal with these, and we need to learn to ask questions and continue to ask questions and continue to be comfortable with uncertainty. Maybe uncomfortable, but comfortably uncomfortable, if you know what I mean. That we can say, I'm sorry, I don't really know the answer to that. Let's try and look at it. I'll just give you an example, I haven't put it in this, of one student who once came to me, quite early actually, must have been in the early 90s. He was very short, that's all I remember about him. He came and sat in front of me after the working day when I used to stay in the department till about 6 and said, Madam, you made a lot of mistakes in your lecture. I said, okay. And we had a textbook called Mendel's textbook, which is the Bible of infectious diseases. I had it, I pulled it down, and I said, okay. And he had this list written down. And so we took one by one. And then I explained and discussed with him why what he thought was wrong was perhaps not really wrong. But he had got some things from very old textbooks which had different facts. He had perhaps misunderstood what I had said, and maybe I had put it in a way that was not very clear. Right? And I thought that was the most useful conversation I had with a medical student in all these years. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. Right. Secondly, cats are great explorers. They're curious. When you're curious, you explore. And that is why we couldn't find that blooming cat. It was hidden, it was exploring, right? And as you can see, they explore all kinds of territory. Now, we need to learn how to explore gaps, not previously identified, maybe unanswered questions, maybe a question that you have that nobody is willing to look at. Over the years, maybe it builds up in you. But you must remember that exploration is territorial. When you're a cat owner, you don't like your cat exploring all over, and certainly your neighbors don't like your cat getting into their kitchen and stealing their food, right? So exploration is dangerous, right? But like cat's exploration, research too can be dangerous. We have to understand that we are territorial by discipline, by geography, maybe other reasons as well. And we are very protective of our turf. It belongs to me, my work, my ideas, my ingenuity, right? But you must also remember that if you don't explore, you don't get answers, right? So we have to find ways around it and through it in order to continue finding answers to the questions that we ask. Now there are two sayings in the English language which you may or may not have heard of. Curiosity killed the cat. I wonder how many of you all have heard that. And another one, that cat has 9 lives. Right? The cat dies to rise again. And there are lots of cartoons, you can look that up on the web. And so we need to remember that, ask the question, does curiosity kill the cat? It doesn't. The cat gets up again and has another life. And so in your research program, when you are obstructed, please find your way around it. You may be obstructed by yourself, you may be obstructed by lack of resources, you may be obstructed by someone else, whatever. Right? But find your resources and get up and walk again. And so, I would also like to congratulate all those of you who have completed your research project. I'm sure at least part of it would have been stressful, but I hope that at least some of you enjoyed the process. And I want to remind you of 2 things. Research is not only for researchers. You know, we have talked already about, highly cited or high-level journals and paying $1,500 to get a paper into a high-flown journal. But that is not the only way that you can do research. It is for all those who practice medicine in all its rich diversity. We have to remember that. And so in order to do that, every one of us has to have a questioning mind and an open mind. Right? When the epidemiology studies showed that it was water that contributed to the cholera outbreak, there were people who disbelieved. When I think it was Semmelweis who showed that if you wash with, whatever it was, Toros I think, that you can prevent infection from transfer, he was ridiculed and finally he died in a mental asylum. Right? So there is always closed mind to new ideas, to new ways of thinking. And so we have to accept that we don't know everything, and what we know today, as the Vice Chancellor clearly showed us, right, what we have taken as a fact may in fact not be true. Right? So, what is the outcome that we are looking for? Research training has created generations of healthcare providers who, if they are willing, like the cat, to be curious, explore and never give up, will lead to the betterment of healthcare provision in Sri Lanka and elsewhere. And so, with the cat, I say thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for those insightful words. Madam, we kindly request you to come back on stage to receive a small token of appreciation. We warmly invite the conference chairperson of PeMSARC 2025, Professor Samidhi Navaratna, to deliver this token of appreciation. Thank you, Madams. We warmly acknowledge the presence of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Professor Terence Madhujit, who with an extremely busy schedule has honored the inauguration ceremony. Now it is time to recognize our brightest undergraduates, the Faculty Awards Ceremony 2025.
The University Grants Commission, better known as the UGC, has recognized the importance of building balanced graduates in order to engage with tests and tribulations of the professional world ahead of them.
In order to recognize and encourage undergraduates to excel in both academics and extracurricular activities, the University Grants Commission has invited the faculties to award the Faculty Awards to students who have excelled in these areas. It gives me immense pleasure to invite the keynote speaker of PeMSARC 2025, Professor Anuja Premawardana, to distribute the awards to the students of immense caliber. I would also like to invite the conference chairperson of PeMSARC 2025, Professor Samidhi Navaratna, to kindly accompany Professor Anuja Premawardana in distributing the awards to our outstanding students.
Therefore, it is with great pleasure that we invite Professor Indu Nanayakkara to the podium to carry on with the proceedings of the award ceremony.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure of announcing the Faculty Awards for the year, academic year 24-25. In the medical career of 5 years, the students have the chance of winning Faculty Awards in 3 instances, that is after second MBBS, and after third MBBS, and finally after the completion of the final MBBS. So start with, we have the 17-18 batch, which we completed the final MBBS this year, and the Faculty Awards for 17-18 batch goes to, I will read out the names in order. Miss Bandarnayaka BMGK. I'm afraid she is at the moment on an exchange program in the United States, so she will not receive the award in person. Then Miss Karuna Tilaka TD, again is not here, I think. Then Mr. Karagala KSU. Mr. Samarasinghe RRACM. Kulawala KRNU. Mr. Senaratna SS. Mr. Tabru NKKS. Ms. Arshana MMF. Ms. Ekanayaka EMNK. To explain that this batch was an extremely competitive batch and there were so many fights. So the panel has decided to give 9 faculty awards for this batch. That is the reason. Then the 18-19 batch, which completed the 3rd MBBS, there are 6 awardees. Mr. Ganesham, Mr. Vaidya Tilaka, SR, Ms. Bandara, HMDNR, Mr. Veeranayaka, HSS, Mr. Hettiarachchi, TH, Mr. Manavadike, SC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam, and heartiest congratulations to all the winners. Sir, thank you for remaining on stage as we have one final award. For the first time in the history of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya, the Professor K. Jayasena, PeMSARC UK Pharmacology Award for the best performance in pharmacology will be awarded this year at the inauguration ceremony of PeMSARC 2025.
For this award, we now cordially invite Dr. Tilaka Senavaratna, the head of the Department of Pharmacology, Faculty of Medicine, to acknowledge the achievement of this year's recipient.
Good morning, esteemed guests, dear teachers, colleagues, parents and students. It is with great pleasure that I announce the inaugural awarding of the Prof. K. Jayasena, PeMSARC UK Prize and Medal at this PeMSARC 2025. This is jointly awarded by the family of the late Prof. K. Jayasena and the PeMSARC UK. Prof. Jayasena was an academic of highest caliber and was the 3rd head of the Department of Pharmacology, Faculty of Medicine in Peradeniya. Prof. K. Jayasena PeMSARC UK Prize worth 20,000 rupees and accompanying medal is awarded to the best performing student in pharmacology. And this inaugural award goes to Ms. VDP Liadagi 2018-2019 batch.
Now it is time to recognize our most accomplished academic researchers, the Academic Staff Research Excel Award Ceremony 2025. The Academic Staff Research Excellence Awards is a prestigious recognition program that celebrates and honors the outstanding research of our dedicated academic staff members.
Therefore, it is with great pleasure that we invite Professor Indika Gavaratmana to the podium to carry on with the proceedings of the awards ceremony.
Distribute the awards of our accomplished academic staff members, I humbly invite the Chief Guest of PeMSARC 25, Emeritus Professor Vasanthi Devanesam on stage, and I kindly invite Professor Samidhi Narayanan, the Conference Chairperson of PeMSARC 2025, to kindly accompany our Chief Guest in the distribution of these certificates.
Good morning, everyone. The kittens are done. It's time to award the cats now. I'm representing the Faculty Research Committee, so I'm not allowed to make any personal opinions here, but then
please do bear with me. I might say one or two things. Now, it's a great privilege to be in the company of Peradeniya. You still remember the way you used to come down and lecture, the way you started today's talk, just the way you did several years ago, unfazed, and then we still remember your lecture, some of them at least. And then Anuja, when I came to the medical school, we looked up to you. One day I was going by the canteen and I saw this tall young man with Rod Stewart-like hair. That was so many years ago. We looked up to you, all of us wanted to follow you. You were a role model for us. And somehow some of us actually tried to imitate your hairstyle then. So I'm so happy that so many people got awards. And research is difficult. It needs a lot of time, dedication, and most of all, money. And despite all that, there are several academic staff members who have done very good research and published in good journals. Now, as Ben mentioned, Sri Lanka is actually a gold mine for research. And I don't think we even know the commonest organism in Sri Lanka, in pneumonias of this country. I don't think. So it is a gold mine. So there's a lot of scope for research. And if I'm allowed to give two examples. One was that when I was doing my PhD, one of the nurses came and said, those patients who complain of burning sensation of their body tend to do worse and they die quicker. I said, I didn't know this anger diarrhea is a very common symptom and there was no explanation. I haven't heard that symptom in anywhere else in the world. Diarrhea. After a few days, I thought, okay, why not investigate this? Actually, we did a prospective study and then we found that burning sensation in paraquat poison is as good as the paraquat level in predicting death. So such a simple observation. So don't ignore simple observations. They might turn out to be really good, very good bedside tests. Then you were talking about this cholera epidemic, and then before the scientists got into the job, there was a group of beer drinkers in London realized those who drink beer from morning till night never got cholera. So that's probably where the scientists got the information from. So don't ignore little things that seemingly useless people tell you. They're useful. And on to bigger things, we have research need collaboration. So I think you can establish a collaboration or join a collaboration. So we have this collaboration in our faculty, South Asian Clinical Toxicology Research Collaboration. And when we started work in 2003, case fatality from poisoning was about in the range of 20 to 25%. 1 in 4 people or more died from self-poisoning in this country. So now it's about 2%. That's all due to research, observational studies, improved diagnostics and therapeutics. So there's enough material in this country if you want to research into. So let me get on with my job. Thank you very much. My wife said, never put this man behind a mic. Okay, so let me introduce the cats to you. Professor Kodikara, K.S. Kodikara. Professor W.D.M.T.L. Dasanayaka. Professor Nurdin. Professor D.M.G. Fernando. I won't say anything. S.J. Wickramasinghe. Professor D.M.P. U.K. Ralphanava. Professor S.C. Dhammaratna. Professor A.N. Vadisinghe. Professor S.D.I. Nanakara. Professor B.N. Disanayaka. Professor L.V.C. Lianapatirana. Professor C.N. Ratnatunga. Professor W.M.S. and K. Navaratna. Dr. J.K. Disanayaka. J.K. Disanayaka. K. Masi for Kirti. K. Disanayaka. That's happened, yes, sorry. Dr. J.M.R.P. Bannara. Dr. C.L. Dandelian. Dr. S.R. Pereira. The Vice Chancellor was talking about an important area of research that has not been done in this country, that is about microbiome. Sagar, I'm talking about your project. Vice Chancellor was talking about a project involving gut microbiome, and her PhD exactly on that. She's doing a randomized control trial and to see if that works in reducing the pressure. Thank you. Dr. H.D. W.S. Kudagamana. Dr. R.M.A.S.K. Ratnayaka. Dr. C.G.K. Amiyawada. Dr. E.M.K.B. Ekanayaka. Last but not least, Dr. J.K. Disanayaka. J.K. Disanayaka. There are some people who could not make it today, and let me read their names out. Professor D.H. Surya, Professor Abhishekara, Professor M.C. Gihan, Dr. T.D.P. Nandadeva, Dr. P.K. Ayu Alvis, Dr. C. Vikramasinghe. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, madam. And our heartiest congratulations to all the awardees. And now, we now invite Dr. Sairi Pereira, the Conference Secretary of PeMSARC 2025, to introduce the keynote speaker for this year's conference.
Professor Anuja Premavardhan. He is a senior professor in medicine from February 2018 to present and the Carter Chair in Medicine at the University of Peradeniya. He is also an honorary consultant physician at the Colombo North Teaching Hospital, Raleigh. He is the consultant in charge at the Adolescent and Adult Thalassemia Care Unit, and he is also the consultant in charge at the Hemoglobinopathy Reference Center, both located at Colombo North Teaching Hospital, Raleigh. He is an examiner at undergraduate and postgraduate examinations. Following his education at Trinity College in Germany, he entered the University of Peradeniya, and thereafter, during his remarkable journey, he did his MD in Medicine at the University of Colombo, and he was awarded the John Stokes Gold Medal for the best performance at MD Medicine. He is a member and fellow of the Royal College of Physicians, London. He is a DPhil, which is a PhD from the University of Oxford, in the field of hemoglobinopathies, that is at the Green College, Oxford. His areas of research interest continue to include hemoglobin disorders and iron metabolism disorders. He has managed to secure more than 10 prizes and gold medals for his academic excellence when he was an undergraduate here at the University of Peradeniya. Moving on to prizes and awards he received thereafter, there are countless, but they include several papers which were awarded the prize for the best paper at several highly prestigious academic events. He has delivered several orations. The one closest to his heart, I'm sure, was the PeMSARC 2018 Congress Lecture Oration titled When Genes Talk, the Story of Thalassemia in Sri Lanka. He has been awarded Presidential Awards of Merit for his contributions to scientific research 17 times since 1999, and he carries a citation index exceeding 3,000 with a net index of 28. With 286 or more publications in local and international journals, it is a testament to his passion for research. Sir, it is an honor to have you with us this morning. Let me warmly welcome you to the podium to deliver your keynote address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed an honor, but it's honestly quite intimidating to be here in Peradeniya. Giving talks in any other place is okay, but in Peradeniya, especially in one of these places, is intimidating. The memories from here is Professor Valentine Kasnayaka, Professor Jayasela, and me somewhere hidden over there. Talking here was never in my mind, and it's really not a nice feeling, to be honest. And thank you so much, Professor Salani, Dean, for inviting me. I don't know what you see in me. This is the second time you got me into trouble. Thank you nevertheless. So the talk I've titled as Research for Medical Graduates and Undergraduates, Developing an Inquiring Mind. It seems to be a recurring theme. Everybody seems to be touching this over and over again. Now, it's very clear that almost everyone here has been exposed to research, and you know something about the research methodology, but I can predict that very few of you would continue to do research in the future. Sorry about that. And very few, even fewer of you would continue to do research as a career. That's one of the reasons, is that research is pretty daunting. To do a good quality research, you need to have a superb idea, need planning, you have to have funding, which is very, very difficult these days. You need to have your methodology correct, which is one of the areas we all fail in if you don't know exactly how to do it. You have to get your ERC approval, which is not easy again. You have to conduct the study properly, meticulously, analyze the results, write it up, present it, okay? Quite a lot of people do this. But the next step, publishing, is quite a lot of you don't translate presentation into publishing. The last step, translating what you publish into clinical practice, is an area where very few people do. Now, why did I say that most of us, you, would not be doing research? Is a fact. There's one paper which looked at the pedigree of Sri Lankan doctors in medical research, which was done over a decade, many years ago. Unfortunately, Sri Lankan medical doctors contributed so little to global research. In fact, their contribution was only 0.086, not even proportionate to the global human mass or the land mass. The publications during that decade was about 1,500. Quite a lot of that ended up in international journals, but very few of them were of any serious substance. Most of them were case reports or letters to the editor. Interventional studies, the really good stuff, were very few. The majority of these publications were from 3 universities, Colombo, Peradeniya and Peradeniya. What I mean to say here is that the doctors who graduate, especially who don't end up in the university system, who go into the main healthcare system, don't end up doing a lot of research, unfortunately. Even more staggering than this was a research done by a very senior academic, published just a few months ago. The university academics who have published over the last few years, quite a lot of their publications end up in fake journals. And this is a problem because all that they do is to publish for their promotions. This is an ouch news because that's talking about us. This was the research conducted by an eminent scientist, Emeritus Professor Jayatissa from University of Verona. He went on to cite that quite a lot of our academics publish in predatory journals. And these predatory journals, the terminology means these are journals which exist to extract money from you. For the journal it's good, it gets money from you. For the scientists who publish in that, all that they get is another publication which they use it for their promotions. And all the big universities are culpable in this. Colombo, 23% of the publications. Peradeniya, where I work, 30% of the publications. Peradeniya can be a little bit happy, 10% of the publications have been in fake journals. This is pretty damning in fact. Now, why is it that we doctors are not capable of doing impactful research? Now the term impactful was mentioned over and over again today. Now at the moment you say impactful, how do you measure impactful research? What do you mean by that? To have a yardstick, you need some kind of quantification. So obviously you need not presentations but publication. Once you publish, obviously it has to not to be in a predatory journal, in a good quality journal. It has to be assessed by peers. So you need, the terminology is, you try to get it into a high impact journal. So the terminology here, I'm sure quite a lot of you are aware of this, is you need to target a high impact factor journal. What is meant by impact factor? High impact factor means that article, a journal with a high impact factor, essentially means that articles in that journal are being cited multiple times over a period of a year. So if a researcher gets the articles published in a high impact factor journal, that is good for your ego. Now, right now, the best impact factor in clinical medicine is in the Lancet. This keeps on changing. It has a staggering impact factor of 202. It has overtaken New England Journal of Medicine with the impact factor which is 176. Nature Medicine stands at 87.25. If these numbers mean nothing to you, for comparison, the impact factor of the most prestigious Sri Lankan journal, Ceylon Medical Journal, is 0.3. Now this is not trying to demean the Ceylonese medical journal. This is just so that you can compare and understand how difficult it must be to get an article in the Lancet. Getting an article in CMJ is very difficult. So if you get an article in the Lancet, you could fly high. Now that's about the journal. What about the researcher's profile? The researcher's profile, your ego profile, is based on, again, a scoring system which is measured by, again you need the yardstick. The yardstick which is used most widely is what is called the H index or the Hirsch index, named after the man who invented this, Georg Hirsch, an American physicist. This essentially means how many times your article has been cited over a period. For example, if you say your H index is 20, 20 of your articles have been cited 20 times. Now these are the top guys in Ceylon. One of these tabs is stated here. As high, staggering impact factors, Indunil Karunaratne, an anesthetist, with an impact factor of 89. Samak Dharmaratne, impact factor 84. Professor Janaka De Silva from here and Peradeniya, 66. Professor Rajitha Vikramasinghe is from Public Health, Peradeniya, impact factor 59. Professor Ranil Jayawardena from Department of Anatomy from University of Colombo with an impact factor 52. These are staggeringly high values. Now, these are very important. Impact factor is very important, especially if you want to compare and contrast. How good is this chap over a lifetime of research, how much they have done. But it must be remembered that they do not always measure their research capabilities. Because for some people, they don't actually do research, they are research managers. But over a period of time, they continue to have a very high impact factor, but they actually don't do research. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you have a low impact factor, does it mean that you are a bad guy, you are a low IQ chap? Not necessarily so. Now, how good could you get in terms of invention if you have a Nobel Prize? Now, two cases of example. Robert Edwards, who discovered in vitro fertilization, which is now so widely used by almost everybody. And the other amazing discoverer is Tu Yoyu, the discoverer of artemisinin for malaria. They won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine in 2010 and 2015 respectively. The most remarkable story is of the Chinese lady, Tu Youyou, who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology in 2015. The H index is 0. She has a 0 H index when she won the Nobel Prize. She discovered artemisinin had no publications at the time she discovered this. She had no PhD, she didn't have a doctorate, but the discovery was so immense, life-changing for so many millions of people, she won the Nobel Prize. So H index is not the be-all and end-all of everything. If you don't believe this is the H index of all the scientists who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology. Right in the middle is Tu Youyou, who has an H index of 0. And quite a lot of them do not have a very high H index. Now, impactful research is truly not the H index. It is something which changes the work, that changes life of people. Let me narrate a story of two people, the story of Barry Marshall and Robin Warren, two Aussies from Perth. Quite a lot of you probably already know them. How many of you have heard their story? These men, the story is from the 1980s, time that I was a medical student here. Now the story is about peptic ulcer. Now in the 80s or before 1980s, peptic ulcer was considered a disease of acid, alcohol, spices and stress. And peptic ulcer was a realm of the surgeons. It was never taught by the physicians, it was taught by the surgeons, and the standard treatment for most of peptic ulcer was gastrectomy, gastroduodenectomy. And it remained a chronic disease. Now, Barry Marshall and Warren were no researchers. Barry Marshall was a gastroenterologist and Warren was a pathologist. And Warren was noticing something very, very odd. He was looking at the histology specimens he was receiving from Barry Marshall in Perth. He was noticing that there was this curious organism, something which looked like an organism, which he identified positively as a bacteria, a gram-negative bacteria. And it looked very much like Helicobacter pylori, which had been identified before. He didn't discover this. Helicobacter pylori had been described almost 30 years ago. But it was rather curious. For Helicobacter pylori, which was in the gut, which was causing peptic ulcer, the treatment was not antibiotics, but was surgery. So he discussed this with Barry Marshall and decided, the two of them together decided to start treating these patients with antibiotics. And not so surprisingly, patients started recovering. But when they started discussing this and started presenting them and started writing this up, time after time, these cases were rejected. Why? Because that went against the traditional teaching belief at that time. Because how could a bacteria survive in this extremely acidic gut? So this was against the belief of science. So this was a huge obstacle to these scientists. They were not scientists, they were just simple clinicians. So it was so frustrating to Marshall, particularly because he was seeing results of this treatment. So he decided to take science onto himself. He developed a broth of the bacteria produced by Warren and drank it himself. So it was almost a suicidal attempt. He realized that if he drank the broth of bacteria, he should get peptic ulcers in about a month. But much to his horror, he developed symptoms within about 3 days. And he ended up in hospital. And then he could treat himself. And within about a week, he got better. And here was a case, a perfectly well man, who had no symptoms of peptic ulcer, drinks the bacteria, gets the symptoms, treats himself and gets better. And now they wrote it up. And again they were rejected. Because by now the scientific community thought, labeled them as mavericks and snake charmers, because that practice couldn't be accepted by publications. Because scientists treating themselves is against all ethical practices. So, yet again, there was so much of proof by the scientific community in Australia and the world, obviously not the world because Australia had to approve it first, was not willing to listen to this. 15 years later, an Australian tabloid paper, the Herald, published this, saying the maverick doctor drinks a bacterial broth, gets an ulcer and cures himself. And there was a huge uproar amongst the Aussies, and the Australian doctors suddenly had to take notice. And that led to a complete turnaround in public opinion, medical opinion, and in 2005, the two of them ended up winning the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology. And that changed the way we treat peptic ulcer disease in the world. And now, peptic ulcer is treated with antibiotics. And very few cases end up with the surgeons. So this is truly practice changing. This is genuine research. So the take-home message is not to, do research on yourself, but if you have self-belief and be able to think out of the ordinary, but realize that there are going to be many, many obstacles, especially from the establishment, not only from your peers, especially from the organized seniors. Your bosses are not going to allow that. But the most important thing, never give up. If you think you have found something, pursue until you succeed. Now this is an Australian story, but there are a lot of inspiration, heroes of research for me from this land. I'll just narrate a few stories for you. These are just purely my inspirations. Some of you will recognize them. The younger in the audience, these faces will be new. Professor Kamini Mendis, an emeritus professor of parasitology from University of Colombo. She never published one paper which revolutionized medicine in this country, but over a lifetime did such an immense body of work on malaria. And that is now recognized as significantly practice changing in this country. And she's been widely recognized as one of the people, but perhaps the leading architect for the malaria control program in this country. You know, I'm sure, in 2016, Sri Lanka was declared malaria controlled, not malaria free or not eradicated, but we were able to declare that we had controlled malaria in 2016. And she cannot be ignored. The work she contributed cannot be ignored at all. The next story might be stale for you, especially because this is Peradeniya. This relates to OP poisoning. But again, I'm sure there must be a lot of youngsters who have never heard this, because I have come across a lot of Peradeniya graduates in Ragana. This story has never been told ever in Peradeniya. So in the 70s and 80s, OP poisoning was so very common in this country. Every year, almost 10 to 15,000 patients attempted suicide, deliberate self-harm with OP poisoning. 10% died. This was the national figure. The fascinating thing was that quite a lot of these patients were recovering with atropine and palidoxin, which was the standard treatment for OP poisoning. It still is, I'm sure. And quite curiously though, Around the third and the fifth day, some of these patients quite unexpectedly develop respiratory failure. For most clinicians across the country, and even for those who are treating them in the Peradeniya hospital, this bizarre phenomenon of respiratory failure, inadequately atropinized patients who had come with severe OP poisoning, was attributed to severe OP poisoning. No one thought that there was something unusual happening, except for two people. Two sharp minds in the Peradeniya teaching hospital thought differently, and this had not been seen before, and they were willing to consider that something new was being witnessed. And they were legends, and I'm sure you recognize both of them, Professor Nimal Senanayaka and Professor Lakshman Karalya. They went on to describe, which put Peradeniya in the map, and described the phenomena which is called the intermediate syndrome of organophosphorus poisoning. Not only did they describe that, they went on to attempt to describe the pathophysiology of this, and made the remarkable publication in the New England Journal of Medicine. At that point, it had an amazingly high impact factor, way more than the Lancet in 1987. Very few Sri Lankan clinicians had a New England Journal of Medicine publication in the 1980s. So Professor Nimal Senanayaka and Lakshman Karalya was one of the few ever to make a New England Journal of Medicine publication in the 80s, 70s or even before. This was in fact groundbreaking research, which has changed the management of OP poisoning forever. Colombo to Peradeniya, from Peradeniya to the northwestern province. Now, chronic kidney disease in Sri Lanka is commonest cause is diabetes. But in the 1990s, clinicians working across the country, particularly in the northwestern province, started to recognize something new. Particularly the farmers in the northwestern province were going down, developing CKD, which had never been noticed before. But then came the bizarre period of science or pseudoscience in this country. Many people jumped the bandwagon trying to explain what was going on. Agrochemicals, arsenic, networks, irrigation networks, genetic susceptibility, the soil, bioterrorism, so many factors were suggested in an attempt to explain what might be going on. After all, this CKD of unknown etiology had to be explained, but some, and obviously people wanted to have a piece of the cake. Now we know that this is an interstitial nephritis. It's a chronic interstitial nephritis, renamed as chronic interstitial nephritis in agricultural communities, and it is not restricted to the northwestern province. Brilliant epidemiological work had been done. It had been mapped across. But even today, we are not absolutely sure what exactly is causing this. That's the truth. But what I'm going to talk about is an intervention which has changed the outcome of people. In 2015, as a project, as a temporary measure, reverse osmosis water plants were installed in the northwestern province, in Anuradhapura and Polonnagar. And the hypothesis was that if you remove whatever was there, it is the poisonous water which was causing the disease. What was there in the water was being hypothesized. Didn't know what exactly it was, but if you remove the source in the water, you might be able to change it. And within a decade, there is already evidence that CKD-U is on the downward trend. So this clearly is practice changing. Now who's going to get credit for this? People can fight over that. But this man, in my opinion, contributed immensely. Unfortunately, his work is probably diluted with politics, In my opinion, if he continued in academia, he could have contributed more to this field. But that's not the topic. No work on Sri Lankans in science would be complete if you don't talk on Professor Sriyal Malik Piris. I am privileged to have been taught by Dr. Sriyal Malik Piris then, when he was a senior lecturer. I was a third year medical student, a very unassuming, very silent teacher. I had no idea, I'm sure he had no idea he would become a world authority, a legend. What's remarkable about Professor Sriyal Malik Piris is that he's probably the only Sri Lankan who has a Fellow of the Royal Society, which is one of the few, one of the highest honours which is given by the British researching community. He's honoured. One of his remarkable discoveries is he led the team which discovered the SARS virus. His discoveries, however, were not in Sri Lanka. Now, for those of you who are at the beginning of your careers, what I'm trying to tell you is that you should get inspired by these stories. You should have a desire to do something original, not repeating a project which has been done before. To do that, you should be very thorough in your methodology in research. But above all, be honest in what you do. Never cheat in research. Never ever be a follower. Always have an inquiring mind. Always try to learn and never stop learning. Always realize that what is printed in your textbooks is not always correct, because information keeps on changing. And also, please remember that your greatest teachers today can make mistakes. And my last story for you is just something like that. And this is about a story of probably the greatest pediatrician Sri Lanka has ever produced. This is Professor C.C. De Silva, a very good looking man, other than being an academic. Professor C.C. De Silva is the pioneering pediatrician. Almost all the first in pediatrics discoveries were done by him. He was the founder professor of pediatrics in the University of Colombo, and the highest ranking oration in pediatrics is the C.C. De Silva oration. Such is the esteem of the man. He was the first to discover thalassemia in Sri Lanka, my pet subject. So in 1950, he discovered 4 Sinhalese children who had thalassemia. Now in 1950, this was his publication. He published this in an international journal saying Cooley's anemia in Sinhalese children. The word Sinhalese is what I am trying to highlight here. He was not a racist, he was not trying to discriminate against the Muslims or Tamils. He was fascinated by this discovery of thalassemia, which was called Cooley's anemia by him, because Thomas Cooley in 1927, about 25 years ago, previously had discovered thalassemia for the first time. Now in 1927, Thomas Cooley discovered thalassemia in US, in Michigan. He was a pediatrician working in Michigan. Now, what Thomas Cooley saw were children of Mediterranean extraction, Italians, Greeks and Cypriots in his clinic, all immigrants from these Mediterranean countries who had developed this bizarre anemia. Children, only 1 year old, 2 year old, dying of very severe anemia. He couldn't understand this because this has never been seen before. And he named it Mediterranean anemia. The only common factor that he saw were children of Mediterranean extraction who had a profoundly severe anemia, dying very young. So Thomas Cooley called this condition Mediterranean anemia. And then people started calling this Cooley's anemia. Subsequently, the disease name changed to thalassemia. Thalassia in Greek means the sea. Anemia means lack of blood. The anemia which came from the sea, and the sea they were referring towards the Mediterranean. So in the early 1920s, the 30s, the 40s and the 50s, thalassemia was considered a disease of Mediterranean extraction. So when C.C. de Silva saw Sinhalese children with thalassemia at the Lady Ridgeway Hospital, he was baffled by this. He didn't understand how Sinhalese could have a Mediterranean disease. So he tried to justify this. This is to highlight what I just said. When thalassemia was described in Thailand, Thailand has almost 500,000 thalassemia patients now. The first paper coming out from Thailand said Mediterranean anemia in Thailand. So this was the belief. So what C.C. de Silva did was, he tried to justify having thalassemia in Sinhalese children by distorting anthropology. He wrote this work saying that Sinhalese must be of Mediterranean extraction. I'm not trying to belittle this great man, but what I'm trying to tell you is that people can, even the greatest of people can make mistakes, and this could get into your textbooks. So what you read today all depends on what is known at that present time, and knowledge keeps on changing. If Professor C.C. de Silva lived in today's world, he would have known that thalassemia is world over. It's not a Mediterranean disease. He wouldn't have written this. Information changes, so don't believe the textbook. Think outside the box. So ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid to think differently. The path of the researcher is definitely going to be hard. Be ready for it. But finally, never compromise on honesty and integrity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that extremely thought-provoking speech. I'm sure that all those present here today have gained much from hearing those words of wisdom. We kindly request you to remain on stage to receive a small token of appreciation from the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Professor Saman Nanayakkar.
As mentioned in the beginning of today's inauguration, PeMSARC 25 is a venture to facilitate, nurture, and inspire research in the minds of students. This event could not have been possible without the joint effort of the staff and students of this faculty. Therefore, I now invite the student chairperson of PeMSARC 2025, Mr. Jude Melaka, to address the gathering.
Distinguished Chief Guest, Professor Vasanthi Tevanesa, esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Anuja Premawardana, our patron and dean, Professor Saman Nanayakkar, invited deans, esteemed guests, Executive Committee of PeMSARC 25, academic staff members, non-academic staff members, parents, faculty award winners, and my fellow brothers and sisters. Good morning. It gives me great privilege and honor to stand before you as the student chair of PeMSARC 25, an endeavor now in its fourth year, which began as the brainchild of one of our former deans with the enthusiastic agreement of our continuously serving conference chairperson, and which has now become one of the most integral parts of our faculty's calendar. Having grown up quite literally and also figuratively, from my very first year in this faculty, working within the framework and team of amazing individuals that have resulted in 3, and with this year, 4 supreme years of research dissemination, I can confidently tell you that the success and beauty of this gathering results from the unparalleled cooperation between the staff and students of this faculty that creates something quite unique and noteworthy. This year's PeMSARC has been no different. And while there will be a more formal thank you later on, it is my belief that words and time definitely aren't wasted in acknowledging the tireless efforts, ideas, and passion of the souls without whom this event would never have seen the light of day. We are graced with the presence of an extraordinary and humble alumnus, a soul who has seen the very beginnings of our beloved faculty and who has given so much in return to it as well, with a special attachment to the Department of Microbiology. Having carried the department on her shoulders through the tumultuous 90s and into the 21st century, establishing, developing, and maintaining almost all the teaching, clinical services and training, diagnostic services and research laboratories the department currently has. Professor Peradeniya, we are honored to have you here as our chief guest. Our keynote speaker, also a favorite son of these hallowed halls, has too achieved the pinnacle of his chosen niche. Topping the merit lists of his undergraduate exams, he is now a leading authority in hemoglobinopathies and iron metabolism in Sri Lanka. He now serves as the head of the Adolescent and Adult Thalassemia Care Center at the Colombo North Teaching Hospital and has been instrumental in establishing the country's only dedicated facility for adult thalassemia care. Professor Anuja Premawardana, thank you for being our keynote speaker today. Though our Vice Chancellor has had to leave us for other pressing commitments, we remain grateful for his presence earlier today. Dean Sir, I suppose this event is not necessarily a novelty to you as a vital part of our faculty's academic cadre, but I hope as we move forward, we will be blessed to receive your continued support in organizing and upholding events of this caliber and nature. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here today not for myself, but for the promotion and advocacy of something that has always and will always drive medical advancement. I stand here today for the desire of knowing what is unknown, for bettering that which can be bettered, for making what was previously thought to be impossible, possible, and for treating what was previously thought to be untreatable. It is my belief that the studies, ideas, and presentations that will be shared today will all contribute towards that one goal in whatever capacity. And I am proud to invite all of you to witness the unfolding of the future of medicine and medical sciences here today. In English, we say, I want to discover new things. In research, we say, I want to uncover that which was never meant to be hidden. Or maybe that's poetry. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you very much.
To conclude today's session, I now cordially invite the Conference Secretary of PeMSARC 25, Dr. Cyril Pereira, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning. Distinguished Chief Guest, Keynote Speaker, Vice Chancellor, Deans of other faculties, other distinguished guests, colleagues and students. I stand before you and your tea, so I'll keep it quick. As we come to the conclusion of this morning's inauguration, it is my honor to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee. I extend our deepest gratitude to our esteemed chief guest, Professor Asante Emeritus Professor, University of Peradeniya, for being with us this morning and for bestowing upon us all your wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you. Professor Anuja Premawardana, sir, thank you for your inspiring keynote address. Your valuable insights have significantly contributed to the success of this event and have provided us with much to reflect on. You are a shining example of Peradeniya alumnus reaching and surpassing other international contemporaries and giants in your field of study. Vice Chancellor and the Deputy Vice Chancellor, although in absentia, thank you for gracing us with your presence this morning. Thank you, Dean Sir, for instilling encouragement and providing continuous guidance to the organizing committee from day one. A special thanks to all past deans, particularly Professor Vasanthi Pinto, who was the founding dean of this PeMSARC. Thank you, madam, for your continued support. A heartfelt thanks to our distinguished thematic speakers who will be sharing their expertise and knowledge. Their presentations and discussions are sure to offer us new perspectives and ideas. We are grateful to all the reviewers and judges, and particularly those coming in from other faculties and institutions, for helping us with the reviewing and adjudication processes. My sincere thanks to PeMSA UK for sponsoring the pre-congress workshop, and the Cali Society of Medicine for donating the Student Research Prize. A huge thanks to the Technical Resource Center and the Departments of Community Medicine, Department of Surgery, for ensuring that this morning's proceedings and the sessions to follow will run seamlessly. Your expertise and dedication are greatly appreciated. We are indebted to individual academic staff members who contributed to make sure the social event this evening would be an enjoyable one for the students. The Congress Chairperson, I have worked with you since our school-going days, and Treasurer, as well as the other Executive Committee members, thank you for dedicating your time and effort. The pre-interns of the 17-18 batch, I'm confident that your level of dedication, enthusiasm, and attention to detail is beyond par to any of your counterparts in other faculties of medicine locally and globally. Continue to carry these skills forth even after you leave the faculty. In conclusion, a heartfelt thanks to our dedicated student organizing committee, spearheaded by the student chair. You have risen to the occasion with your tireless efforts and meticulous planning. Your hard work behind the scenes, without compromising your academic work, has ensured the smooth execution of this conference. It has also, I hope, instilled in you a thirst for research. As teachers, we await in eager anticipation to the day that one of you will be the keynote speaker at a future PeMSARC conference. On behalf of all the academic staff, let me wish you every success at the presentations that will follow. Have a pleasant day, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement from the Faculty Research Committee. For anyone with a misunderstanding or a problem with regards to their research, the Faculty Research Committee has a research walk-in clinic that will help to clear all your doubts and answer all your questions. These doors are open to you any day, anytime.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a kind reminder that the social evening of PeMSARC 25 will be held from May 20th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. onwards at the arcade area in the Peradeniya building near the Community Medicine Department at the Faculty of Medicine.
We assure you that this evening is going to be a fun-filled event with entertaining games, songs, food stalls, and of course a DJ. Don't miss out on it. And before we wind up today's proceedings, I would kindly like to remind that we have 3 amazing thematic presentations lined up for you after the morning tea break. These 3 thematic presentations will be conducted by Professor Tushara Kudagamana, Professor J.K. Disanayaka, and Dr. Sumudu Jayawardena. I would like to kindly invite all of you to join us after the morning tea break within this very hall to witness and amaze yourself with the stunning research these presenters have lined up for you. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to conclude the inauguration ceremony of PeMSARC 2025, please rise for the pride of our nation, the national anthem.